Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Battery Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Aidan Gorrell,
And I'm Jack Horsman.
and together we are two of the leaders of the Battery, the official Boston Cannons supporter group. Um, you may be wondering exactly what that is. I think the PLL will be putting out some information about that, but essentially, they helped us create a supporter group for the Cannons and for the other 8 teams in the PLL. Hopefully, more to come. And basically, it's our job to ensure that Cannons fans and Boston and all of New England have just the best time rooting for the Cannons. Obviously, pretty easy to do that after this champ series, and especially their weekend at Harvard Stadium. Make sure we really pack the house, bring the energy, and bring home 2 more wins.
Absolutely. Yeah. Super excited for this. Yeah, let's just dive into it,
Sure.
shall we?
Yeah, so Jack, why don't you explain a little bit about where we were the past week? I mean, I think they can probably guess it was the champ series, but how we got there and what we did.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Anne alluded to, we were down at Champ Series this past weekend with the PLL, and we were actually down there for a summit with the rest of the leaders of the various supporter groups. Every PLL team is going to have a supporter group just like ours, and there were a couple of leaders for each group down there as representatives. And basically, we spent the weekend just interacting with each other, a lot of sessions, working sessions of various ways that we can grow our supporter groups, ways that we can make homecoming great, personalize everything about our groups, and just really make all of them a success.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a lot of fantastic ideas on what to do to make Harvard the most magical weekend that the PLL has all year. Um, and we'll be releasing those like as it comes out. But obviously, if any of you listening to this have some ideas or something you want that you think would be great addition to Harvard, please let us know in the comments. Or all of our socials will be in the description as well. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, all right. I think with that, maybe let's just discuss what happened to the Cannons in pool play. So we were not at this game in person. We didn't get there on Wednesday, but game one, an overtime heartbreaking loss to the Redwoods. Romar Dennis kind of literally putting the team on his back. Um,
that that
yeah,
was tough.
it was, especially because there was like a stretch in I think it was the third quarter. The Cannons had kind of had a 1 to 2 goal lead. Maybe it was tied, but they'd been ahead all game and they gave up 4 goals in a row. I think at least one of them was a two-pointer. And so from then on, they were put on the back foot and just clawing their way back. Obviously, they got it to overtime. But it's not hockey. You don't get the pity point if it goes to OT. So
No, and yeah, the Redwoods won the face off in overtime. And, we'll talk about this a little bit later, I'm sure, but I definitely was, it felt almost like, just a repeat of the Cannons from last year, and that they weren't a big face-off team throughout the regular season, obviously. And it seemed like during that first game against the Redwoods, they were not a great face-off team. Rob Pennell out of nowhere
yeah, insane.
taking face-offs like that just kind of blew me away. I'm like, could he be a Fogo? Like, what is happening?
Yeah,
But it was like, oh, whatever, it's okay. Like, if we're not that great at faceoffs, because there's only 4 a game, it's
right.
so back and forth. But then you get to overtime, sudden death, and so when you're not able to win the faceoff, Redwoods get it clean. Pinnell gives it to Romar, and he just goes down and scores what it was like 15 seconds in, like just
Something like
just
that.
immediately. It was like, well, that there we go.
Yeah,
There
I
we go.
mean, you give it to Romar and no one's there to slide to him like that. That's a ball game right there. I'm curious. We haven't talked to anyone in the PLL, but hopefully, they'll reconsider. If maybe, um, the overtime, especially for sixes, won't be sudden death. I think that could be an interesting change, something we haven't seen in lacrosse. I think it's sudden death OT at every level of the sport that has OT.
Yep.
But although maybe that's championship game changed my mind a little bit, but it does
I
feel.
I was gonna say, yeah. Again, we'll talk about the championship game later, but maybe it's all right. But sixes. One of the things that you always hear about is how it's a different form of lacrosse, which it definitely is, and it gets compared a lot to basketball, the sixes specifically,
Yeah.
and basketball, you don't have the first basket sudden death in overtime.
Although
It's a 5 minute period.
I would love to watch a form of basketball that was sudden death. That would be like
That
the exact opposite of the All-Star game that we saw where the East put up what 211 points. Like I would
something
love to see how
ridiculous.
hard guys would play defense for that. Probably not coming
That
to the NBA sometime soon, but
that would be something.
yeah,
That
I
would maybe they could test it out in like summer league or something like that.
yeah, I would. All right, yeah. Anyway, it's not a basketball podcast, but Maine
No,
Celtics want to give that a go. All right. So obviously tough loss to the Redwoods on Valentine's Day in game one, but we did get
broke
down
my
there
heart.
in person for day two, which saw Cannons really rebound. Final score was, I believe, 25-19 over the Archers.
I think 26-19 actually against
26-19,
the
yeah.
Archers.
Um,
Yeah, that was a much better game from the
yeah,
Cannons. Although the Archers seemed to not really be great,
yeah.
surprisingly, in
I think,
sixes, and defending champs, and they just never really put it together in
yeah,
sixes.
I believe I don't think anyone had gotten hurt at that point yet. Maybe that's, maybe they're playing through something, but I mean, well, so Amen got hurt, I think, leading up to it, or he wasn't going to be ready in
Right.
time. And Schreiber playing with the Toronto Rock at the NLL, like they're down their two best offensive players, so they were.
And
Um,
Fields, I think, is also in the
oh
NLL.
yes, Connor Fields. I
So
forgot.
like no one got hurt in like the first game for the Archers. It's not like they were down,
Yeah,
they had their full sixes roster, but their selection of players for their sixes roster was nothing like their summer roster. Dobson too
yeah,
isn't there in net. So they
yeah,
definitely were missing some very key pieces.
yeah. And going into it, I did think that the Archers would probably do better than they did, so they went winless, ultimately. But and well, sad to see that. I mean, you hate to see a fan base that just like goes home without, and the players to go home without any wins at all. But
Yeah.
I thought with it being so much more high scoring in sixes, I really thought that them going, being forced essentially to go to a very defensive heavy lineup would maybe be somewhat of an advantage in trying to shut down opposing offensive players. But they just weren't able to put up enough goals. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think they maybe hit 20 once in the four games. I think they were confounded in the teens pretty much the whole time, which is not enough to reliably win.
Yeah. Yeah. Interestingly, your point about the defense heavy line, I'm kind of jumping around right here, but I was rewatching the championship game last night. I just watched the ESPN broadcast, and you mentioned when we were doing, again, a little preview, when we were doing the t-shirt toss during the championship game. uh I think you made a point. Oh, it's interesting they're still doing an offense
Yeah.
and a defensive huddle. And I thought, oh, like I wasn't so sure. And I thought, oh, maybe it's just like it's group A, group B, whatever. But it was something that I hadn't picked up on watching the games live, but going back and rewatching, it seemed like they really did try to have their offensive group of five and their defensive group of five. That it wasn't perfect because guys are fluid going up and down. You're not able to
Yeah.
change all five guys, but it seemed like the Cannons really tried to have Holman, Kavanaugh, Knowlting, Campbell, and Drenner out when they were on offense. And
Yeah.
then they put the Oslanians, Rawl, Stout, and Bubba in when they were on defense. And I just found that to be really interesting because you have all the stuff that they talk about in six is that it's positionless
Yeah.
lacrosse and everyone plays offense and defense, yet the teams are still structuring it to have you're our offensive group, you're our defensive group.
Yeah. I think another way to think of it, for those of you who are hockey fans, is almost having like three forwards, two D, how they do in the NHL, where they did try to do that as much as possible. I saw, but I think I saw some combinations of essentially they put a couple O guys, a couple of D guys out there, like especially for face-offs. And
Yeah.
then the appropriate guys would sub in and out depending on if they won or lost. Um, and I don't know if you saw this on the champ broadcast, but I believe Holman was talking to Gittiman, who I believe is essentially working as like the substitution manager,
Mhm.
given that he wasn't, hopefully going in the game unless Chris got hurt. Just talking
Right.
about like um, knowing that they wanted, oh, I think they said Bubba or Pataslanian on Michael Sowers and McCardle, obviously the Water Dogs' best offensive players. And so making sure
Yeah.
that they subbed, um, oh, I don't remember if he said himself or someone else out, but basically to get someone else on Ryan Conrad, who would be on the far side of the field, subbing all the way across, and then
Right.
putting out Fairman, Rawl, the more defensive guys to get them
Yeah.
on Sowers from the get-go rather than risking the switch. And I thought, I mean, obviously, what a high level moment to get to eavesdrop on, basically.
Yeah.
So to hear how they're thinking of it and making sure that they get their matchups, that it's a mix of O guys and D guys. Um, yeah, and like I said, like it's positionless, but they're still trying to limit the defense that Drenner and Holman and Nolding have to play and Kavanaugh, and then limit the offense to an extent that Rawl and Fairman and the Islanians. Um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah. All right. We took a bit of a detour there, but perhaps we should also just talk about, well, not for too much, but the round robin game against the Water Dogs,
Ugh.
which
Yeah.
I think the Cannons said would rather forget. I believe I heard that they did not watch any film of that game afterwards.
Hmm.
They just thought,
I mean, who would want to? That
yeah.
was awful. Like, I feel like there's not much to say. That was not fun lacrosse to watch as a Cannons fan.
No, for sure the worst moment of the weekend.
Yeah.
And they,
Props to DeLuca, though, I will
yeah,
say.
uh,
He played unreal really all week. Like,
yeah.
he was
There's,
insane, but especially in that game. I mean, it took until the last few minutes of the fourth quarter for the Cannons to even hit double digits and
yeah,
sixes with a 2 point arc.
yeah.
Like,
I, I,
yeah,
again, I did look up all the scores from this year and last earlier today. I'm pretty confident in saying that is the lowest total from the past 2 years of 12. I think the Cannons only had one 2-pointer. The Water Dogs had seven. So like just from those numbers alone, you're probably going to be trailing. I
hmm,
believe that was the game. Gittleman only played the first quarter, after which the Cannons were down, I think 8-2. Kirst came in, but I think it's just a snowball
that's
effect.
right. Yeah, and they had split time in the
Yeah,
first two games. I think they went Kirst first half, Gittleman second half against the Woods, and then they went
yeah,
opposite against Archers
yeah.
with
Which,
Gittleman first, then Kirst.
yeah, um, which I would say still worked quite well in those first two games. Obviously, didn't get the result against the Woods, but just I
Yeah,
mean, especially what we saw in the championship game. Kirst is just an amazing goalie. Uh,
he
he,
he's good.
yeah,
He's good.
like as good as DeLuca was, obviously the whole tournament long in that championship game, it was neck and neck with
Kirst
Kirst.
went toe to toe with him.
Yeah,
I mean, he came up with some major saves in the fourth quarter and overtime. I was again going back. Actually, let's save it.
yeah.
So we're done with round robin. All right, Cannons finish 3 seed. So we've got the Woods yet again in the semis on Sunday. This time we got a much better result than we did
Yes.
on Wednesday.
I do think it's worth noting the Woods had lost Garrett Epple and Ricky Miezon, who I think, perhaps aside from DeLuca or maybe more than DeLuca was the story of the tournament until he unfortunately got hurt in game two. I think some with a hamstring. So if you didn't know, any of you listening, he played linebacker at Stanford, transferred for his fifth year, played midfield at UVA, was not drafted this past year, but
Well, that's because, well, actually, he was going to play a sixth year.
okay.
He was going to play 2 years at Virginia. And so he actually, did you watch the TLN documentary about him? They just posted it a couple days ago,
Uh, I
following him through Champ Series.
I don't think I got to that. I'll
It
have
was,
to check that once we're done here.
yeah, it was pretty interesting. But Yeah, he was. There's just a clip in there where he's saying where he is still currently a graduate student at UVA. He's still enrolled, and so he
Okay.
was supposed to play for UVA this year, but then the NCAA denied him his eligibility just kind of out of nowhere in the fall. Like he had every intention of playing a second year at Virginia, and then they're like, actually, no, you don't get 6 years, you only get five. And he appealed. They said, nah, you're done playing. And so that's why the Woods were able to just scoop him up for Champ Series because he effectively, when his eligibility just got nixed out of nowhere, he effectively became a free agent all of a sudden.
And what a find for them. I mean, huge
Yeah.
body. Like the it is funny how like teams can take on these identities of the Woods, just having so many like huge midfielders with Perkovic and Dennis and now Miezon. I mean, we saw him
Yeah.
absolutely truck some guys. Um, but anyway, back to the game. So they were down him, they're down Epple, and then towards the end of the first half, Panel goes down with what looked like a hamstring. He did
I wasn't sure,
maybe an
honestly.
ankle. Um,
Ankle, knee, something, lower
yeah,
body. Honestly, there was a portion of time where he came back in and I thought he might have just gotten hit in the family jewels because I was like, oh, like he was really hurting. And then all of a sudden he seems to be doing all right. So maybe, just
yeah.
that sudden burst of pain passed, but it seems like it was some sort of lower body injury because he ended up leaving again after taking another hit.
Yeah, we saw him do like a classic Rob Pennell, like cut, split dodge, score, and then going back to the bench. He was really limping getting over there. Uh
Yeah, I think he got kind of whacked a little bit on the follow through.
yeah,
Uh
which was the Canon strategy. I think maybe we can talk when we get to the champ game about what we overheard post game.
yeah,
Um, but cannons were quite physical. I remember it was a late hit that Stout had on Henningberg. I think Henningberg was right at the crease. Obviously tried to quick stick it, was not caught, and Stout came in pretty not high but late with a cross check,
late
knocked it
for
down.
sure.
Penalized for it. Henningberg got up in their face. I think he was also assessed a penalty. So the cannons
Yep.
um, were definitely asserting their physical will, which again probably helps that Miazon and Apple weren't out there for the Woods.
Yeah, the Redwoods were definitely lacking their physical guys.
Yeah. Um, all right, and I guess that brings us to the championship game, where the Water Dogs, I'll say in a closer game than I expected, did beat the Archers. It was Matt Moore, who was certainly their best offensive player going into the game. Perhaps Ryan Ambler could take that distinction as well. But Moore
Hmm.
was done, so or was injured. So Tommy Palasek flew in, arrived at 4:30 in the morning. Uh, I wish I'd looked up when his last PLL game was before this, but I'm pretty confident he did not play last summer.
Yeah, I don't know. I can remember him playing for the Atlanta Blaze back in the MLL,
And the
but
Lizards as well.
and the Lizards, and yeah, he was I remember he was kind of an unheralded guy, I think,
Oh
going
yeah,
into the MLL and then played pretty well. But when I saw the name Tommy Palasek was playing for the Archers, I was like, that's a name that I don't remember hearing in a few years.
yeah. And then arrives at 4:30 in the morning, and he was their leading scorer in the game. I think he had 7 goals, 1 assist. So clearly,
Yeah.
Palace still got something in the tank. Maybe it was just fresher legs after coming
That
in.
too, or just it seems like there's a lot of stories like that. Again, kind of taking a detour, but Ronan Jacoby from the Archers, I think, might have been their leading scorer for the week,
I believe he
and that's
was.
another guy that was literally playing ULAX
Yeah,
last year.
which he
Uh,
must have been amazing in that league.
I that's that I can't even imagine what it must have been like to have to go up against him
Yeah,
on, it, here I am thinking, oh yeah, like playing some men's league lacrosse, yeah. And then like you're literally could be a professional. I think Ryan from the Water Dogs was saying that he plays in the South Jersey men's league. And there's a lot of college guys that play in that league in the summer just
Mm,
to stay sharp. And so, he said that he was talking to someone once, and they're like, the guy asked him, he goes, "Oh, so where do you play?" And Ryan was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "It's like where do you go to school? Where do you play?" He's like, "Oh, I'm not in college. I work."
yeah.
The guy's like, "Oh," he's like, and Ryan asked me, he's like, "Well, where do you go?" He just goes, "Cornell." And Ryan goes, "Oh, really? Like, do you like play?" He goes, "Yeah, first line midi." I'm like, What?" Like,
So yeah, I expect with us being in the Boston area, there'll be some similar stories. Uh,
probably.
because we certainly got um a lot of alumni who moved to Boston after they graduate. Like not to blow this story, episode one, but Colin Kirst was my neighbor. He lived down the street from me last year. Obviously he's not playing ULAX, but there's only 16 goalies in the PLL. So goalies number 17 through 20, one of them's in Boston.
Yeah.
I'm probably not scoring.
Right. Well,
I mean,
yeah, I
I'm
think
not scoring
that
for
that
Colorado.
is a ULAX rule, is that you're not allowed to play if you've ever played professionally.
That's
However,
really, yeah,
Jacoby had not joined the PLL yet.
yeah,
And while they might not allow professionals, college is fair game. So you could be facing future pros,
right.
even
All
if
right.
you're
Well,
not
let's hope.
facing current or former pros.
Yeah, let's hope all the BU, Harvard, and Tufts guys are moving far, far away in the summer because I don't really want to get. I'm a defensive player. Don't really want to get beat just every time I have to guard someone.
Or, we use our connections as the Battery Boston Can support group, and we just get all of those guys on our team.
Would love that as well. So if you are listening to this podcast and you want to play ULAX in the Boston area or any men's league in the Boston area, please hit us up. We just gotta get enough to form a team. I would love to do that with you, Jack, and with anyone else who's listening. All right, and
Awesome.
now let's finally get to the championship.
Let's go. My favorite part of the weekend.
Absolutely. So, I think we were all worried a little bit going into it. We got some great photos of us and the Philly guys. Maybe I'll be able to put that in here right now. Cool. Um, and then I mean, DeLuca, I think he was scary all week. I was just worried, especially after game one, the Cannons were not going to be able to get enough shots.
Mhm.
Sowers and McCardle had been unstoppable. Both of them, along with Nolting and Holman, were up in contention for most points or most goals of the weekend. Um, I mean, they're just a really, really good team. Like they were in the championship last year. They won it the year before. Obviously not a full roster, but some very, very good lacrosse players. But um, again, we got to talk about it a little bit. The Cannons, playing tough, playing physical, taking Sowers out about 90 seconds into the game with I know it was described in the broadcast as like a high hit. I didn't quite see a lot of head-to-head contact. Um,
No, I think that there was no penalty, so
yeah,
and in real time, I think that it makes sense for there to be no
yeah,
penalty. When you slow it down, and they showed it later, it was a little late
yeah,
from Stout, I think, and it wasn't. I didn't think it was high in the sense of like helmet to helmet,
no,
but like, because it was late, like anything that is on the upper half of the body is just gonna like look a little worse.
yeah, and especially
So
Sowers
if there's
being,
any gray area, yeah,
yeah,
and especially with Sours, it's just like that's just gonna make you think, oh, like if it's kind of high, you're gonna think it's high
yeah,
because it's late.
yeah. So Sowers goes down, does not come back. We did see him walking around later. So
Pretty
he's
close.
okay, in the sense of he's, not dead. He seems to have it all his back, but um
Yeah.
not able to play. And then a few minutes later, fortunately this guy was fine, came back into it, but uh
It was one of
not
the Aslanians.
yeah, Pat Aslanian. I'm just trying to think of the guy's first name. Not Jeff Trainer, Jack Trainer.
Jack
So
Trainer.
and
Yes.
this hit was definitely, it was high and late. I mean, it started in the back, but it quickly rode up to right underneath his helmet.
Yeah. The
Well after
cross check too. It wasn't like Stout just drove into Sowers kind of with
yeah,
his shoulder.
this
This
was
was just
slam
cross check straight out.
Yeah, so that was
Um,
however, I mean, that was almost a good turning point of the game for the Cannons. It was a 2 minute power play that the Cannons outscored the Water Dogs on 2-1. Um,
that literally is the
yeah.
difference. Yeah, technically, I mean the
And
fans won by one.
yeah, and ended the first quarter, up 8-4. Uh,
Yep.
Second quarter took a bit of an opposite turn, um, with three, four, 2-pointers, I think, in the quarter for the Water Dogs.
Water Dogs started rolling.
Yeah. I
Started
mean,
rolling.
they've got some good range shooters, including is it Borda or Barda? I think it's Borda.
Florida.
Yeah. Who was another guy who I don't think has been in a PLL uniform yet, but made a great case for himself. I mean, big dude. We saw him later, like signing
Mhm.
autographs. Um, Huge, obviously, hell of a shot. Um, and then guys like Conrad, McCardle not stopping. Like we know what they can do. They're
Yeah.
really good scorers.
Exactly. Yeah. It seemed like kind of after Sowers got taken out that Philly might have been a little rattled and
Yeah,
thrown off the game. And, obviously they have a lot of good players, but Sowers is the guy in
yeah,
that offense. And so, the Cannons came out hot, came out strong, came out physical, and then Sowers goes down. Seems like for that first quarter, that kind of hurt Philly and helped the Cannons. But then in the second quarter, it seems like they Water Dogs regrouped a little bit and were able to kind of shake off whatever was fogging them up and kind of get back to being the Water Dogs that they had been through the past four games.
yeah. So and within that as well, there was one more like very physical play by Bubba Fairman on the Cannons. Uh,
Hmm.
don't remember who he was hacking at, but essentially he got in a good, solid, uh, not quite cross check, but just drove his opponent to the ground. Took one hack at the stick, which I think was fine, and then took a second one
And
that was
then
more to the arm or to the ribs, and
yeah, it
which
was like it looked like a wind up.
yeah,
I was watching that, and yeah, I actually had somehow missed it live, and um rewatching the broadcast, I saw it last night and went, "Holy crap! What did Bubba just do?"
yeah, I think, and hearing well, Holman and Kavanaugh talk about it post game, but other players as well that the influence Brody Merrill has had. I mean, obviously, I never played for or with or against Brody Merrill, but from what I've heard, he was a mean dude out there, and like
Mhm.
he was a dude who was always finishing his check. He was always hitting you when the ref wasn't looking, and I think dare I say, kind of Broad Street Bullies types vibes from the Bruins, from the Cannons today. Harkening back to the Flyers who essentially punched their way to two Stanley Cups for Philadelphia back in the 70s.
We don't, no, not the Broad Street Bullies. It's the Big Bad Bruins.
No, that's what I'm saying. That was the rivalry, but the Broad Street Bullies
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
literally punched their way to the Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
Which I don't think it's fair to say that the Cannons did that. Like they have some incredible scores as well, but clearly being physical on both ends of the field was part of the game plan. Um,
yeah, for
and not
sure.
obviously not taking out an opposing player, but
No,
you know, hitting them every chance you get. And
yeah, make them think twice. You hear about it in football a lot about guys just popping dudes coming over the middle, and so the receivers next time they're a little more timid, and
yeah,
then you throw them off their game. I think that was it. Definitely, you never want to see a guy like Sowers go down, or anyone go down for that matter. Like I don't think
yeah,
anyone ever wants to intentionally hurt and take out another player, at least definitely as a fan. Like that's never what I would want. But I think that that was definitely the game plan for the Cans was like, hey, let's rough them up,
Yeah,
that like let them know we are here and we are tougher. And I think they talked about it a lot. They got the crap beat out of them by the Water Dogs in the semifinals
yeah,
last summer, and then obviously that rough loss in the round robin. And so it's like the last couple of times out, the Water Dogs just were just better than the Cannons, or just pushed them around. And I think the Cannons said, we're not going to let you push us around anymore.
absolutely. And maybe, well, we can skip the first fourth quarter a little bit. Cannons had a little bit of a lead, gave it away with a huge 2-pointer by the Water Dogs. Um,
Mhm.
but two goals late, one a crazy assist by Asher Nolting as he's falling down to get it to Drenner. Um,
Yeah,
and then Asher taking it himself,
nuts.
pushing off his defender and getting it by DeLuca just before he lands in the crease. Uh,
That I was so nervous there. That
yeah,
review
it
took
took a while.
so long. And you even said it that like that maybe that they were going to, because they originally called it a goal. And so you're saying, oh, maybe they have decided that it's not a goal, but they need to know how much time is going to be on the clock. And I was like, oh no, like that makes so much sense. I really hope that's not the case though. But
Yeah,
thank the Lord they kept that call as a good goal call. And
yeah. And then we go
then
to overtime.
actually the but and going back to talk about Curse though, and just him standing on his head, I think that uh the Water Dogs went up 22-20 with about 3 or 4 minutes to go in
Yeah,
the fourth quarter. So Cursed didn't give up a goal for the last 3 or 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, plus
a minute
all
and a
of
half.
overtime,
Yeah,
which is just so impressive. Because even after Nolting scores, they confirm it's a good goal for the Cannons, tied at 22 with I believe 24 seconds to go, going the other way.
yeah,
Water Dogs had plenty of time to go down. Balls in McCardle's stick, Golden Stick Award winner, which we can talk about that a little
yeah,
bit too. But he gets a shot off, but just cursed with the save clear. Then unfortunately, they didn't score.
yeah.
I mean, they could have taken. You saw Holman was pretty upset because Campbell just went down, and or was it Campbell?
I think it was Fairman.
No, it was Fairman, or it might have been one of the Aslanians. Actually, I think it might have been Pat.
Oh
Whoever
yeah,
it was, I think it might have been Pat, and he just went down and just had a horrible shot. And
yeah,
it's like there is the argument, just like let the boys play, because if the Cannons take a timeout to get their offense set, then the Water Dogs also have time to get their defense set. But regardless, overtime, and I was so nervous because
yeah,
just like we talked about, not well, nervous in general because it's overtime. Just like we talked about, their face-offs weren't great. That trend continued
yeah,
throughout the entire week, and we're like, oh, if Water Dogs win this face-off,
yeah.
who knows what's going to happen. And Rawl, actually, I thought he made such a good play on
I
that
love
opening
that.
off, and he
Yeah,
scooted through and then misses the ground ball. I saw him scoot through and I said, yes, it worked. And then he doesn't come up with the ground ball, and I just
yeah,
said, oh no, Philly's got it. No, what's going to happen? And
yeah. So I believe their first shot, I think it was Caraway shot it high, which in sixes, if it doesn't touch the goalie or a defender, it's a turnover. So Curse takes it out. And dear God, the saves that Matt DeLuca had. Like I
that
was,
man, that man earned himself a job. I mean, he's
yeah,
Ward's
like
backup, and that man, like, I think he has to start for
yeah,
someone this
make
summer.
a ninth team just so Matt DeLuca can have a job. Like, oh my God,
Literally.
when was it Knowlton goes down, like already, Asher Nolting cutting down the middle of the field. You feel pretty confident in that shot. It's a save. The rebound goes right to Marcus Holman. He has time to fake, and DeLuca just gets the
Well,
stick across.
because DeLuca's down on his knees too,
Yeah,
so you have the net wide open above him.
yeah,
Granted, man's like 6'7", so like he's almost as tall as not like Gittleman, even when he's on his knees. But it just seemed to open up. I saw it. I
oh,
saw the goal. I think Holman saw the goal. I think everyone in the stadium saw the goal,
except Matt
but
DeLuca.
DeLuca didn't. Oh my goodness.
And once that happened, I was so confident. I was like, "There's no way where they're stopping the Water Dogs twice." But I mean, again, Curse
Yeah.
standing on his head on a like I've seen that play a lot, and now the whole, all of overtime, the Caraway and on the run 2-pointer, which is not the shot you want, but Caraway can sling it. And it's not an easy save to make, but Curse got it, outlet, and again they take it down. DeLuca makes another save, and
On yeah, Campbell cuts through, comes
yep,
down the middle, save, but it bounces out and Holman gets the rebound again,
yep, and this time,
brings it around back up to Kavanaugh, and oh my goodness, that call from a niche,
yeah,
I've listened to it like 20 times, and I think that's gonna be a call that I will remember for the rest of my life. Just Holman passes it up to Kavanaugh, cutting down, puts in the net, just the Kavanaugh ball game, Boston, you're champion. And just then the crowd noise, seeing Brian Holman
yeah,
screaming. I just, oh my gosh, what an electric scene that was.
yeah, truly. I mean, the perfect cap to the weekend. Um, yeah, truly, and I mean, an incredible finish to the weekend. Incredible game. Like that is one of the best lacrosse games I have ever seen, I think, in person or on TV. And obviously
Yeah.
for Boston to come out on top, for just such a thriller, for the Cannons to continue their turnaround, from 2022 to finish 1-9. Then last year to go 7-3, finish I think third in the standings.
Second.
Second,
Second.
yes, that's right, to the Dogs. Um, and I think we've probably both read this, but Brian Holman texted the Cannons players when he was hired, saying that they were going to go to the Champ Series next year and they were going to win it, and they did. I mean,
Bold. They did.
yeah, just an
It,
amazing 2-year turnaround, and I'm so excited to see where they're going to go from here. We were lucky enough, just as we were checking into the hotel, to see Coach Holman, and get to talk to him for a few minutes and
mhm.
say how excited we were about this team, and ask him a few questions about what they were going to do for the year. Uh, and hopefully we get
Yeah.
more chances to do that. But I
Yeah.
really
I
like this guy's
forget
delivery.
which player it was post game, but they're asked about, what is this experience winning here in the Champ Series mean for the team going forward? And they said that it taught us how to win.
Yeah,
And I think that that's just so great that, yeah, they had a great year last year, finish second in the standings, go to the semis, and it's an incredible turnaround. But still, it was a brand new group. There were obviously Brian Holman, yeah, new coach, but there were so many new players as well
yeah,
that it like while it's awesome that they were able to turn it around so fast in year one, the fact is that it's still year one. So that like they're still getting to know each other through the year. And now though that that's exactly it. They know how to win. They have won the championship series. And now next year will be year two under Holman. You'll get the whole team back together. Asher Noltane's going to have another year. The dude was an MVP candidate in his second year.
the first ever 20 goal, 20 assist season in the PLL, which I mean, for the caliber of, like, I know it's not a long history, but for the caliber of player that they have in the PLL, like,
Right. That no one had done it is
yeah,
crazy. But Yeah, and so it just makes me so excited that, like, the championship series championship, it's awesome, but I think you always the ultimate goal
Yeah,
is raising that trophy at the end of the regular season, the playoffs. That you
that's
want
exactly.
that real
Yeah,
big trophy, and I think this show that the Cannons can win, and so I'm excited for 2024 and seeing
I
what they can
I
do this year.
cannot wait for June 1st. Yeah. All right. So I think maybe we can wrap it up here, unless you have anything else you wanted to talk about, Jack.
Um, no, I think that's about it. Just it was just a great weekend. A lot of fun. I guess just we spent a lot of time talking about the Champ Series itself. And at the start, we mentioned that we were down there for Summit, but just kind of wanted to reiterate what a great experience the Summit was, and give a specific shout out to Allie and Libby with the
Absolutely.
PLL for all the work that they are putting in and for selecting us to lead the battery and get to go down there and just have that amazing experience. It was truly incredible to get to know everyone from the other groups and kind of bounce ideas off each other. And so really excited for what's to come with our group.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we got flown down, and for basically 4 days, it was our job to be Cannons fans, which is such an amazing privilege. But that also, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, that only could happen because Libby and Allie and so many other people at the PLO were working really hard to make the event great and make sure we had a great time, and could provide the best stuff to you and to all the rest of Cannons Nation uh, come June 1st. So we'll have many more episodes out before then with updates before then. But absolutely, we will hope to
Oh,
see you all.
actually, another final thought,
Yep.
just about going back to the lacrosse itself. Sixes confirmed awesome. I was excited about sixes going into it. It's new, it's interesting, and you have all the talk tracks. Oh, like, you know, it's a faster game, more exciting, and I will say I still prefer 10 on 10 lacrosse because that's just what I grew up with. That's quote unquote real lacrosse to me. That's what you play in youth, that's what you play college, that's what the main PLL season is. And so I think that's always going to be my preferred
Yeah.
method. But I thought that sixes at first going into the week, I thought it was fun, and seeing the guys playing, having, Asher going against the shorty, or seeing guys like Rawl with a shorty rather than a pole. But then as the games kind of went on, and it lost a little bit of its uh excitement to me, just because as it wasn't this new exciting thing, and it felt like the round robin games got kind of mellowed out because guys were just, whether it be they were trying to conserve energy for the semifinals of the championship, or because they were getting better at defense and learning how to control things. I just felt like, this isn't as exciting anymore. But the semifinals and championship totally changed my mind on that it was just, the intensity was so high that it like the competitiveness was just off the charts. And that, granted, I mean, it's an overtime championship game where Boston wins, so I'm
Yeah.
a little biased there, but just that championship game was incredibly electric. The crowd, the atmosphere, everything about it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Yeah, I mean the league itself certainly could not have wished for a better game, and us as Boston fans, again, it's easy to say we came out on the winning side of it, but um, like I said, one of the best games of lacrosse that I've ever seen. And I'm excited to see how strategy is going to evolve. Like we talked a little bit about that clip of Holman that we heard. And then I looked up some numbers earlier today that the average goals per game last year was 46, and today or this year it was down to 41. So
Mhm.
not a huge difference, but somewhat of a difference. I think coaches and teams are figuring out some strategies to make it not just um, a track meet or basketball, but um, I think there's always going to be more goals. But I'm excited to see how this evolves, how roster construction is going to change in
Mhm.
years to come. I think the Redwoods probably or the Archers probably provided some good information on that, and to see new guys get opportunities.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
if we're not invited back next year, if someone else goes in our stead, I will definitely be watching every game of this on whatever platform it's on, and well, hopefully I am lucky enough to get back next year. But
Yeah, agreed.
uh, we just see the Cannons win the first of many championships.
City champions.
Yep, absolutely.
I think that's official now.
Yep,
We had that little thing with the Boston and Philly groups down there. For listeners don't know, is that in our mission statement that we wrote while we were down there, we referred to Boston as the city of champions. And Philadelphia also referred to themselves as the city of champions. So there's a little back and forth there. And I think that uh, you know, beating Philadelphia in the championship game on Monday, automatic or not automatically, I think that should officially declare Boston as the city of champions, and Philadelphia should not be allowed to use that
yep.
anymore.
At least in the lacrosse atmosphere, absolutely. And man, I cannot wait for the two games that Boston and Philly are going to have against each other this summer. Those are going to be,
They will be
if
electric.
one of those is in Harvard, we are going to go absolutely nuts, and I'm going to love it.
Can't
Yeah,
wait. I can't wait.
yeah.
This summer's going to be awesome.
All right. Um, so I think with that, we'll wrap it up. We'll be back with you again soon. If you have any questions about the Champ Series you want answered or about what we did at that summit, please let us know. Again, all of our socials will be in the description, or you could comment on YouTube as well. We are excited to bring the battery and the Boston Cannons to you guys. And until next time, let's go Boom Squad.
Go Cannons. Yeah. And if you haven't joined the battery yet, go to our website, go to our socials, and make sure to fill out the sign up form so that you can stay in the know on everything going on with the battery as we approach the season.
Yes, thank you for that. All right, until next time. See ya.
See ya.